Okay, folks, the team has arrived, so now we can call the meeting to order. Council, have we a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So approved.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Finney. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. We are open for questions from the audience. Any questions today? Lots of inquisitive looks, but no questions. All right. Council, you've had an opportunity to look at the agenda items. Are there any disclosures of interest today? Hearing none, we can move on to several minutes are in your package, including the regular council meeting of February 12th. We've had them for a couple of days. Anybody care to make a motion? Moved by Councillor Tower, acceptance of the minutes, seconded by Councillor Evans for February 12th. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Special meeting of March the 5th on page 12. Moved by Deputy Mayor Aitken, seconded by Councillor Evans. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Minutes of the closed in camera of March the 5th on page 17. Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. One last set of March the 6th on page 18. Acceptance moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Mitten. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Was there any business arising from the minutes? I have none noted. So we're already at item number 7, moving along quite well. Unfortunately, it falls to me. So, Regional Service Commission did meet after not meeting for a couple of months due to weather and other things. A couple of things I thought you should know about. One is the tourism, the regional tourism strategy has taken a second step. They are now established an interim steering committee whose responsibility will be to look for and hire a facilitator, which will then work towards the business plan for how this will unfold. And we have appointed our interim member as Mr. Burke to the interim steering committee. They will also make ultimately recommendations on a final management committee, which will include a lot of operational agencies and people on that board. So it'll be directly have tourism members involved. I did circulate to you the interim reply to the waste, the concern about the export of waste. Recall that the Regional Service Commission wrote to the minister concerned about a proposal to take waste from around the Fundy Commission area and basically take it to a landfill in Nova Scotia. We did get an interim reply, which I believe I've circulated to you all, but in essence it says that they are looking into it and the good news is what the interim doesn't say is that basically the minister has said, we just got to figure out how to stop this now. So it's not a question of whether we're going to act, it's a question of how we do it correctly. So there could be several items coming out of that, including potentially of a broader provincial strategy and a provincial commitment to the recycling as opposed to allowing waste to be exported as it would have been. There's a number of announcements on trails. There's an expectation that there will be increased funding for regional trail system, and they're just waiting to see how much that may be, but there will be some activity on regional trails because of that. I have a note that they are also looking at considering how, as a pilot project, how to turn natural assets into balance sheet assets for local governance or regional service commissions. So it's an interesting concept. They really didn't have any details on how that might work. It's something that has been tossed about in the literature for a while, but it is it's an interesting idea because it requires the government then to be responsible for maintaining those assets and improving them as necessary. So we'll see how that unfolds. An interesting point was made about the value of developments outside of the three cities in the southeast area. That means outside of Riverview, Moncton, Dieppe, was $110 million in value last year, which is larger than the town of Fredericton. So this all took place outside of the metropolitan area and in the smaller villages, towns, and LSDs. So $110 million of development. So let's hope that's a good sign for everybody. There was a reference again to the emergency measures and the province-wide, what would I call that, trial exercise on June 13th that will involve all of the emergency measures across the province. We had an update on fire services from the LSDs in particular, and there was a concept that they're now looking at potentially forwarding the concept of an identification card for every firefighter in the province, and that there are new regulations being passed securing sites overnight instead of some of the volunteers having to stay overnight, that it can now be done by contract with an accredited security firm, or will be. I'm not sure if it's passed yet, but both of those people thought were good ideas. Anything, Deputy Mayor, that you would add to that, your recollection of the meeting?
No, Your Worship. I was a little behind the ball on that one because the translator I had wasn't working, and I couldn't keep up with a lot of the French. But one thing I did note was that the waste management facility is now generating electricity based on methane production, and they've calculated that since they started in the late summer, I believe, they've essentially generated enough energy or electricity that would have taken 2.7 million tons of coal to do. So it's turning out to quite a valuable project.
That's a good point. Thanks for that. So they're burning off the methane that is coming out of the landfills and turning it into electricity. And their only lament is that it looks like they have a deficit on the sheets because we have to do public sector accounting. But if this was run as a business, they would already be in a profit from the capital investment to the revenues they're getting back. So I think in the Eco 360 update, I believe I circulated that as well. There was some reference in that to that about the amount of greenhouse gases that that waste corporation has replaced or lessened was quite impressive. And when they supplied that as well as the methane burning, we asked that we circulate that year-end letter, so that's why you got that as well. So, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any questions on Regional Service Commission? No? Okay. We move to planning with Ms. Bickford.
Thank you. In the month of February, there was one permit issued for a construction value of $15,000. This compares to last year with the same number of permits for a construction value of $2,000. Generally, this time of year, development tends to be slow due to the weather, so that can be the accounting for the lower numbers. As well, there's a number of other projects that were worked on in the month, and one of the key items that I'd like to update council on is that the Community Planning Act did get revised at the beginning of 2018. There's still a lot of items that they did go in, change a lot of the numbering, but kept a lot of the same content. However, there's some regulations that'll be coming out in the near future that will accompany the Community Planning Act. So some of the items, like regional planning, was moved into a regulation format, which hasn't come out or hasn't been released yet. So that will be coming in the future. But embedded right in the Act is, which is of interest to the town, is the rezoning process and public notification. So previously, under the Act, we were required to place 2 advertisements in the paper, and there was no option for putting things on our website to notify the public. However, now they have amended it to say you can either place the ads or you can place it on your website, And as well as there's a section in there that also talks about a notification within 100 meters of the proposal, that you can notify the neighbors to inform them of the rezoning. These are a number of items that has been criticized over the years over public knowledge of applications that are that are before council. So staff is looking at taking advantage of these, and especially following suit with a lot of municipal bylaws themselves that get advertised on town's website. So what we'd be looking at doing now is placing an ad on the town's website as well as ours. It would fall in the newspaper at least once during the cycle, and we would also be moving towards notifying those neighbors within 100 meters in those cases if it's a site-specific proposal. Obviously, in those cases where it's a text amendment and applies to the whole town, we wouldn't be into a notification scenario by mail, but this is at least a step towards better notification of the public and awareness of rezonings that are underway. I also wanted to provide an update from the discussion meeting on Monday night, or last Monday night, over the Parsons investment rezoning from highway commercial to institutional. This was, if you'll recall, for the purpose of the ambulance service. Since that meeting, the applicant has come in and adjusted the front yard setback to 50 feet. So this now brings the building in line with the veterinary clinic, so that established street line that's on Robson Avenue. So I just wanted to put that forward because I know there's a resolution coming later for that. So if there's any questions?
Questions, folks? You didn't cover statements of provincial interest, which is in your, could you just explain a little bit about it? And also, my question is, when do we start seeing some of those?
I believe we're not quite there. At this point, it's just at the NB planner stage of things, which Jamie Burke is the president of that organization, so he can correct me if I'm wrong on anything that I say. But at this point, it was part of an ETF fund, I believe, that they got funding to go ahead and start to look at these provincial statements of interest, which are broad statements related to the items of resiliency and climate change adaptation, flood risk reduction, health in the built environment, coastal development, and infrastructure and transportation. So the idea behind it is that these would become adopted provincial-wide, and they would apply uniformly, and then we would draw on them as support for introducing some of these items at a local level. But most of all, making sure that you get consistency throughout the province, that everybody is treating these items of importance the same way.
Excellent. Councillor Evans?
I'm going to ask a question, and I didn't give you a heads up beforehand, but I hope you can answer it. Someone asked me, and I didn't know the answer. It's my understanding that the property that we're considering starting the process of rezoning on, the applicant is Parsons, but they're not the owner right now. I know stuff is in the works. Can you just elaborate, clarify that for me and for the person who asked me and anyone else who's interested?
Sure. It's not uncommon to have somebody apply for a rezoning on property that they don't own. This particular one is going through a subdivision process at the same time that we're considering rezoning. What is required from our office is a sign off from the landowner indicating that he's aware or she is aware that there's an application underway. And in this case, we do have that on file.
Any other questions on planning? Felt like that. I think we have a motion.
I move that whereas council has considered an application from Parsons Investment Limited to amend bylaw 244, the Town of Sackville zoning bylaw, to rezone a portion of the property known as PID 70553284 from highway commercial to institutional to permit an ambulance service from this location. Be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Sackville directs that an appropriate bylaw be prepared to amend bylaw 244, the Town of Sackville zoning bylaw, as it pertains to the above noted property. that the proposed bylaw be referred to the Southeast Planning Review and Adjustment Committee for their views, that notice of intention requirements of the Community Planning Act be fulfilled with respect to the proposed amendment, and sets the council meeting on April 9, 2018 at 7 p.m. in council chambers at Town Hall, 31 Main Street, second floor, Sackville, New Brunswick, as the date, time, and place for the public hearing of consideration of objections to the proposed bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor Tower. Floor is open for debate. Councillor Mitten.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to speak in favor of this motion. The current location of the New Brunswick EMS building is not great. It's between the train tracks, which poses problems if the train's running or if there was something to happen with the train stopping. So the ambulance couldn't get out. And the proposed building is on a different street so that, than sort of the main area we're talking about in our plan. So the streetscape wouldn't be as affected as much. My only concern was potentially Robson moving, but it sounds like, especially with this 50-foot setback, it shouldn't be as much of an issue. So I don't think that allowing this institutional use will prevent us from achieving the goal of an attractive, walkable, and well-planned development. So I'm happy to speak in favor of this. Thank you.
Councillor Mitten. Any other comments? Question? All those in favor of the motion? Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a small ceremony to do. I would like to start with a proclamation. Given the many outstanding accomplishments of Mount Allison Athletics, I am hereby declaring March 27th, 2018 as our 4th annual Mountie Day in recognition of the important contribution that Mount Allison Athletics makes to our community. In doing so, I encourage our council, our staff, and the entire Sackville community to show your support for Mount Allison Athletics on March 27th and wear your garnet and gold. Show your support in your home and business windows, and most of all, to continue to support our athletics and the various athletic programs. To show our support, the town will proudly fly the Mount Allison Athletics flag on March 27th. At this point, I'd like to ask Pierre Arsenault if you could, I will meet him down at the mic, make a presentation. So we're presenting, the town of Sackville declares March 27, 2018 as Mountie Day in recognition of the important contribution that Mount Allison Athletics makes to our community.
Mr. Mayor and Town Council, thank you very much for this recognition. It's become a wonderful tradition in our world to have Mountie Day, and right back to the very beginnings when this started 4 years ago, we were really humbled and appreciative that the town that all of our student athletes come and call their second home would want to do this and want to recognize everything that they do in terms of all their commitments. Really day after day all year long. And one of the things that's been very gratifying and that we're very proud of is that as we've gone through this, the stories that we've been able to tell and the programs that we've been able to talk about in the passing years have really been our different teams and our different programs. And as you know, at the time that this started, there were really some wonderful things happening with the football program, and last year while we were here, our men's basketball team was off to nationals for the first time in program history, and tonight we have our Mounties women's basketball team with us, and as you might know, this coming week, March 14th to 17th, Mount Allison will host the CCAA women's basketball national championships for the first time in our school's history. So we're bringing a national championship to Sackville. 8-team championship. There are some alleged weather challenges tomorrow night that might prevent some teams from arriving, but everyone's due to come in, and it will be a wonderful week of basketball. And I'm especially proud to share the news that our Mounties girls will play in the national championship, not only as the host team, but as our as ACAA champion, as our league champions. As last weekend at the ACAA championship, our girls beat Mount St. Vincent in the championship game. They were down 16 in the third quarter, and the girls stuck together. They didn't quit. They kept swinging, and freshman Emma Hashi hit 2 free throws with a second left to send it to overtime, and then the girls took over the game in overtime, and we won. So first time we've won the women's basketball championship since 05-06, and really a testament to Coach Gamblin and his staff and the players for everything that they've contributed, gearing up for now being able to host nationals here in Sackville. So I'm going to invite Aaron Steves and Sarah McGetchie, who are graduating seniors and the captains of our team, to come up and introduce the team for us.
I'm Erin. Should we just, do you want me to start? Okay. And I'm Sarah. Okay. So stand up and say your name. So first we have Sophie. Yeah, Sophie. I don't know, just say their first name. It's fine. And then Lauren. I can just go. Yeah. Kirsten. Hannah. Lauren. Kathleen. Cole, Kate, Carly, Emma. She's the one who made the 2 free throws. Lauren again, Jill, our manager Emma, our trainer Sarah, and Lauren back there is also on the team. And then our coach Matt and our assistant coach Tom.
All right. The girls just came from practice. They're really excited to get a picture.
Okay, we'll reconvene. Thank you, ladies. Best of luck. Thanks, Pierre. Coaches. Great job. So we move to item 8. That's my report. Several things just to note for you, and one was that was invited to the Rotary and discussed the flooding works and the long-term and the short-term plans for freshwater and moving out gradually to saltwater. Seemed to go over very well. There was a lot of interest afterward. no questions, but afterward, people stopping and asking how could they get involved and what more could they do, and then wanting to know what else was happening. And I think that resulted in another recent presentation to Rotary on some of the other things we're doing in town. So I think that was a good idea. It might be something that'll happen more frequently now. There were a few media inquiries via rail. That was the result of our resolution. CBC just called and we did a radio interview about why we were taking that position. I didn't hear it, so I don't know how it came over. I had another, well, it wasn't live. I was traveling when they wanted me to do it, but so I did it on tape. Another reporter, I think out of Fredericton, called because they were following up on the assessment role issue, and they did do an article, but it was about how this had happened, and I declined. I felt that we had explained that multiple times and that we'd moved on to another issue of taxes, and that we had accepted what they had told us, and we had moved on, and so I didn't feel that it was right at that point to participate, and he took that up. We did have a lot of discussion, but he did not report any of our discussion in that article, which I thought was fair. Ducks Unlimited is under media because their national publication is doing an article on the 30th anniversary of the Waterfall Park. And so I had a very brief interview. They'd already talked to a whole bunch of people, and I just made a couple of suggestions about who else they might want to talk to, and noted that we have an elementary school and a high school that now have wetland as part of their education program. And she said, oh, that's a good idea. Nobody's raised that. Well, we're going to talk about the role of this in education. So it'd be interesting to see if that comes through in the final article. Via rail, we did send that support letter. This was after that, after the conversation. That was fairly recent. And I don't know if you may have noticed, I think it was in today's Globe, that there was, farmers were registering concerns that both of the railway systems were underinvested in order to get the commercial traffic that's necessary out to the ports in this country. And the part we made in our letter was you have to invest in the railway traffic to get the commercial value to Halifax and St. John's and over to Europe. And if you do that, then the upgrades for passenger is marginal compared to what we were talking about of simply doing passenger. So I thought that was quite timely for us. There was a SHAD conference for the first time at Mount Allison. This is an application program where top high school students in the STEM categories apply to participate. They have to go different parts of Canada. They can't be in their neighborhood. And they spend a month doing a wide range of projects and figuring out things depending upon the topics that are set for them in those particular communities they go to. So Mount Allison is by far the smallest university that has participated, and we are by far the smallest community that has ever participated. So we have reached out, SHAD has reached out to us, and we've gone back with several possibilities about how they could focus on a small community and the types of things that would be of use to us that we would also want them to investigate for their own purposes as well. So that will take place in July, and we're working on that kind of an agenda right now. Several of you, I think, attended the Community Machinery's grand opening, so we welcome him to the economic workplace here. Glad he's running it. Had some really interesting comments about his philosophy, about the business, and during that opening, and I thought they were all right on about the type of approach he's trying to take, which is a really innovative one, I think. I'll go to Indigenous Advisor. I did meet with their some of you know Doreen. She has retired, and there is an interim Indigenous Advisor, a young lady from Tobic First Nation, and they are posting the position for a long-term placement. And Emma has taken on, in the short term, those obligations of that position, and she is organizing the first powwow for Mount Allison. And you've all been invited. I believe I sent that out to you, and Deputy Mayor will be giving some remarks at some point there. We're still not exactly clear when, but it'll be an interesting opportunity for everybody of the community to show up and see how a powwow works. And she's well aware that this will be the first opportunity for many people to attend. So she says it'll be friendly for rookies. We'll explain what we're doing. We'll talk about what the meanings are. You'll have an opportunity to speak to participants and be comfortable. Just come. That's her invitation. The councillors, we met singly. This is more for other people to know that we just met together to talk about how we were feeling about things and what we felt we were doing well and what we felt we needed to improve on. I thought that was a really candid and useful exchange. One of those products is in your hands right now. And so thanks for that. That was a good evening spent. The tourism, we've got that. A few other things. Yeah, I'm going to skip that one. It's a little premature right now. It just happened yesterday, and I'm not sure that I can talk about that very fully at this point. Just a couple of people stopping me and follow up about age-friendly after we had that. It was simply that. When are you guys going to act on? What are you going to do? Same with the walk in the park preparations. Tantramar Education, this is Sackville Schools 2020, which has been renamed to a Tantramar Education Vision. At least that has been the request, because it's more inclusive of schools around us who will feed the high school at some point, and so shouldn't be left out of this change in education that's being proposed. So one of the very interesting opportunities is that the province, the Department of Education in the province is considering bringing in some education specialists from Harvard University to lead a talk on the reform that we're speaking of here. The word has gotten out to some of the education staff at Harvard that this is what we're talking about here, and they're intrigued by it. So there is now some talk of having a few-day highlight of education reform discussions here with them involved and advising us as well. So we'll see if that unfolds. It would be a fascinating one if it is. So I did meet with several of the groups that had written earlier about the quarry. You guys had heard about that. We did make calls on the environmental impact assessment just to see where it was, and figured somebody was changing jobs, somebody didn't tell somebody something. Anyways, I think we sorted out a few things about where that is at. I'm not sure if it's helped speed it up at all, but I think we now understand where things are at and what we need to do in order to make sure that it moves ahead. We're not in control of everything on it, though. I did receive a call today about, and I thought I would raise this today because the question was about the cannabis shop and the surprise expressed that there was one in the town. No knowledge that it had been talked about, no knowledge that it had come forward. I guess in some ways they rely on council to have a discussion over such things, but of course we did not, because it was changed legally federally, legally provincially, and it fit into the zoning, and it just fit within the legal framework as revised. So it wasn't a council decision, it was made elsewhere. So the surprise that what there was being built, that it was selling cannabis, was the question I got. How did this happen? How come we never heard of it? Well, so I just raised that in that you should speak to people. The assumption is that we went out and brought it in. And I said, well, we're actually quite passive. We really didn't. The laws were changed and someone else made the choice. And so that's where it sits. I mean, it's now legal. It's being constructed legally. It's being managed legally. So, but I thought that we should probably just make sure that when we speak to people that they understand how this came to be. Okay? And we did have electrical issues over the weekend. And while I was sitting in a darkened Tim Hortons, I was surprised to get email updates from NB Power Vice President directly. And not that I could do anything about it, but I was surprised to get them, and also surprised that he sent 2 or 3 updates as well. But I didn't realize that I would be getting them. I didn't see any role for us, quite frankly, other than to be able to tell the ladies running the Tim Hortons that they wouldn't have power for another hour or 2. So, but I thought that was good that they've reached to that stage where they were working very quickly to get that type of a message out. Okay, any questions on any of the topics? Councillor Evans?
There were 2 points I was going to raise, but you raised one of them. I wanted to thank you for these notes. I appreciate that. Your first point about the presentation you made at Rotary, as a Rotarian, I was there for that, and the reasons there weren't questions was because it was a fascinating talk and went a little long. But that was not that people weren't interested. I got many favorable comments afterwards, and so I would encourage you to take this on the road, because I've done as much as I can meeting with people individually, explaining about, essentially there are 4 parts to our whole flooding mitigation project, and we've dealt with, phase 1 and we're in the process of phase 2, but the quarry and out 935, 106 and stuff it's all part of it, and I thought you did a good job explaining that to people, and I realize that the people I hang out with regularly don't know about it, so I'm obviously not doing a good enough job. So anything you can do to do this again for other people, I think would be a good idea.
Great.
But thanks for doing it.
Thank you. Well, I enjoyed it, too.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Okay, oh, sorry, Councillor Finney. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, I believe I heard on the radio that there's supposed to be some sort of a presentation in relation to cannabis down in Oxford very soon. I didn't catch the date or anything, so I don't know if it's more or less to inform people actually what's going on or whatever. I'm not quite sure about that, but I heard it on the radio.
We haven't been advised of anything.
No, like I said, I heard it on the Amherst radio, so.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an ear out for that. Okay. Okay, thank you. We move on to past the mayor's report to the CAO report. The CAO is away this week for, it is on page 25 of your package, and I'm not going to read it. Most of the material that is in it, if you wish, have any questions, please ask, but most of the material is covered by the other items on the agenda. So if you're okay with that, unless there's a specific question, I'll move on to the next item, which is Finance and Admin. Councillor Tower.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be doing the accounts payable and the payroll. With the information's on page 26 and 27, and notes that will come out of that would be in the general revenue. We received the 2017 asphalt paving holdback release, and also the asphalt patching holdback release. The WorkSafe New Brunswick 218 premiums, and 2018 grants and donations, and power bills for the month. Under the utility, we had Viola Water Treatment Plant contract and the power bills for the month. General capital was the Lawrence Street project for the 2017 invoices, and Canada 150 item, which would be skateboard. Then we under utility capital, we have the water meter purchase for 2017. And as it says in the second on page 27, the overtime was mostly for plowing and also for the bylaw for working at night for getting the overnight parking. And that is all from the bills and payroll and accounts. And I'll pass part 2 on to Deputy Mayor.
Okay.
You should do the motion.
Should do the,
Okay, I move that council accept the bills and payroll for the month of February 2018 as follows. General government, $467,788.52. General capital, $576,227.77. Utility government, $41,586.09. And utility capital, $38,074.21. Salaries of $190,544.41.
Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Second
Mayor.
motion's here, so.
thank you, Worship. The report for Finance and Administration appears on page 28 of the package, and I won't read the whole thing, but Mr. Beal has generated a sort of an executive summary of it. The financial statements are included to the end of February 2018. In accounts payable, we've now closed off the 2017 books and are only processing 2018 invoices. The year-end is progressing well. The auditors were here in late February and early March, and they have taken the information we gave them with them and will continue work leading up to the May 7th meeting, special meeting of council. At this point in time, it's projected there'll be a surplus in the general fund of between $55,000 and $60,000 and a surplus in the utility fund between $5,000 and $10,000. I have a motion forthcoming for the authorization to borrow funds for our 2017 capital project, and full details of this were provided in the March 5th special meeting. The work continues with the province on filing reports and claim submissions relative to our Lawrence Street Phase 1 and 2 projects. In Phase 1, Claim 4 remains outstanding in the amount of $1,157,587. There apparently was a new person processing these claims and was apparently a little more enthusiastic and rigorous than the other people, so there's Michael had some more explaining to do. So apparently that's been resolved and its check is, as I say, in the mail. Phase 2, we have one claim for $18,869 that has been approved, and a check is forthcoming for that. The water billing for the period October to December of 2017 had a due date of February 14th, 2018, and the reminder notices will go out in March. For the water and sewer shutoff letters were sent in September. It was a total of 73 accounts that received shutoffs for a total value of $69,883.69. And as of March 6, 2018, we've collected $48,733.76, or nearly 70% of the total. Dog tags are now available in Town Hall. Proof of rabies vaccinations must be provided at time of purchase, and tags must be purchased by April 3rd, 2018. Since March 31st, the usual deadline falls on a weekend, and then there's a day off after that to avoid late fee. And finally, the bylaw enforcement and animal control statistics for February are attached. And overnight parking ban is in effect, and it should be noted that vehicles can be towed in addition to tickets issued. And that's the report, Your Worship. If anyone has any questions, we're kind of working without a net this month because our treasurer is on vacation.
Yeah, Councillor Evans.
But we will try.
Not a question, but a comment. The mayor in his report indicated that he was not going to respond to a question about the assessment, because that was done. But I feel obliged to comment on it, because when we were discussing this, I was really disappointed that our assessment had been reduced by $12 million gross, $9 million net. And we had been told by the province that that was going to be reflected in people's property tax bills. We would be reduced to a total amount of $12 million in the community, except for those people whose property taxes had gone up. And I admit that I was a little bit cynical, and I think I have to say I got my property tax bill and it was reduced by a little bit. So I think, full disclosure, I have to say, at least in that small sample, they did do what they said they were going to do. Somebody in town did get a lower tax bill. I hope it wasn't me because I complained. I hope there, in fact, was a problem and they're correcting it. But I just wanted to make that clear.
The reason this reporter called was that he went to the map-based assessment and came to Sackville, and he said it was covered in the color that shows decreased assessments. Yeah. He said, it's like everything is covered. And I said, well, that's what we kind of expected and hoped to hear. So that was the reason they called. There was no other place like this. There was other places that had them individually, but said we were just blanketed.
Okay, that's good, because we were told there was no other place. We saw that there was no other place like Sackville for getting hit with the cut. So at least this seems consistent, so.
They increased mine.
Okay.
No, it's okay, Mike.
Any other questions on the report? No? Deputy Mayor, you have a motion?
Oh, yeah, right. I move that be it resolved that the treasurer be authorized to issue and sell to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation a municipality of Sackville, New Brunswick debenture in the principal amount of $797,000 on such terms and conditions as are recommended by the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation. And be it resolved that the municipality of Sackville, New Brunswick, agree to issue post-dated checks payable to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation as and when they are requested in payment of principal and interest charges on the above debenture.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Tower. Question?
I would like to speak to this because we learned at the discussion meeting that this is a relatively high amount for the utility capital budget, and that's because of the Lawrence Street project was a huge project, and our utility part of that we have to pay for, and we're going to borrow it. But it's also not here because there's no motion saying we're doing any general budget capital borrowing. And that's significant. I believe it has happened before, but doesn't happen every year. So that, in other words, all of our capital expenditures on the general budget were done out of capital, out of revenue, or other sources. We're not borrowing any money, and that's significant, and I think it needs to be said. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. You're right, absence by, it was absent, but it needs to be spoken to, as we did in the discussion, but it needs to be on this forum as well for people to understand. Any questions on the motion? Any other debate? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Tourism and Business Development. Councillor Mitten.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report is found on pages 36 and 37. And the Tourism and Business Development Liaison Group met on February 22nd, 2018. And here are some of the highlights for the past month. The Tourism Product Packaging Workshop that was held in January has led to a bird watching package being developed with some local businesses, and more details will be released soon. Border Town preparations continue. David Miles has been confirmed as our headline act. And a full list of performers will be available this coming week. The Fundy Biosphere Board met, and as we've mentioned before, our manager is now a board member. And they met in Sackville and reviewed the past year and their plans for the upcoming year. Business development ads were placed in the spring editions of Business Expansion Journal and Atlantic Business Magazine, and editorial content, so non-ad material, will also be featuring Sackville in both magazines. The visitor guide tender, tender number 2018-03, Sackville Visitor Guide Printing, was opened in February. A motion to accept the lowest bid is forthcoming tonight. The Canada 150 Plus Poetry on Poles project continues, and we anticipate having a list of poems to be installed in April. The manager attended the student job fair at Mount Allison in February, and there was enthusiastic interest from students in the various jobs we are offering. Approximately 104 applications were received by March 1st, and interviews will be underway soon. Preparations are underway for the town to participate in the annual Saltscapes East Coast Expo, taking place April 20th to 22nd in Halifax. Planning continues for the Waterfowl Park 30th anniversary celebrations. Please reserve the date of Saturday, June 16th, I believe, for celebrations and commemoration events. And the Fundy Bay partnership continues to develop, with a new board being formed and possible funding forthcoming. Staff continue to stay updated on the group's progress. Given the Southeast Regional Service Commission's plans for the Regional Tourism Destination Marketing Organization and the future of the Cultural Coast. So more details will be provided as they become available. And that is my report. Oh, so actually I have one more thing. So on page 38, you may have noticed there's an image. So there is a picture of the proposed new highway sign design. It's a lower resolution, but you can get a good idea of what it would look like. And it features an iconic image of the Sackville Waterfowl Park, which is an important feature of our town that motorists glimpse as they drive by Sackville on the highway. And it also seems fitting to feature the Waterfowl Park, as this year will celebrate its 30th anniversary.
Thank you. Any questions on the report? Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, Your Worship. I was just wondering, the sign, will that be on both ends of town? Replacing the one that's down and the one out on the marsh as well?
Pardon me? Oh, yes, it will be, yeah. We were, yeah.
I knew there was one had to be replaced there, but I was hoping they both would go.
Yes, they will. We've actually, I think we have that process pretty much at the point where we can pull the trigger now. We expect both of these to be installed within the next month, probably, Dwayne? Month and a half, yeah.
Are we going to get to see it, like, live here or in color or whatever? I'll have to go on my computer and have a look at it at home. It's in color.
Okay. Do you want to show me?
Councillor Evans has a,
I just, I had two comments, both of them kudos. Oh, sorry. I like the sign, good. I know how difficult it is to come up with something that is, that everybody agrees on when it's a matter of taste. So the fact that I happen to agree with this is also good. But the 30th anniversary is wonderful. And about Border Town, David Miles, awesome. That's Mount A grad, good stuff.
Councillor Black, please.
I'll
get
lean
that
this
one
way.
checked.
I also wanted to say David Miles, that's awesome. The student job fair at Mount Allison, enthusiastic interest from students in the jobs we were offering. How many jobs are we offering, and is that only to Mount A students, or is that to, like, is that open up to students in general? I just wanted to know.
Yeah, that's a good question, Councillor. Thank you. No, we have a variety of jobs for high school students and university students. It's not restricted at all to Mount Allison. It's really any student is eligible, a student who has been a student this past year and is going back to school in the fall. And I would estimate we have maybe 20 jobs. I'd have to kind of count through, but we have public works, facilities, tourism and business development and programming. I think I've covered everybody. We all have jobs. And as I say, a number of them are for high school students and some of them are for university students.
Councillor Mitten, please. Oh. Councillor Mitten for the motion.
Thank you. So I move that council award tender number 2018-03, Sackville Visitor Guide Printing to the lowest bidder, Taylor Printing Group, Fredericton, MB, in the amount of $10,304, HST included.
Moved by Councillor Mitten, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. Councillor Tower?
Thank you, Worship. Just two questions. Two questions. One, did we reduce the number of booklets this year, or were they the same numbers last year? And part two is, how many bids did you have?
Thank you, Councillor Tower. We actually are doing the same number of guides, but we've increased the size of it. We felt that it was a little bit cramped and that there was enough things in town that we could use a few more pages. So it's 8 pages larger than the previous one. That's why it's a bit more expensive than previous years. I believe we had 5 applicants, 5 tenders, and this was the lowest one. Yep.
Thank you.
Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor. Public properties and facilities, Councillor Tower.
Thank you, Worship. The information's on page 39 to 41. As we all know, February was a busy month for winter control with the large temperature swings, everything from freezing rain to snow. Not knowing what's coming makes it really difficult for our great crew. It also created some challenges for the flooding issues. The utility department continues to work on the water meters, as always, which they do a fantastic job at. Public Works Department provided some maintenance for the Bill Johnson Memorial Park Field House during the month of February. The addition of chair rails, as well as the lower wall FRP paneling, which is there for protecting when they move the chairs and tables up against the wall, trying to make it so it's easier to keep clean in the future. We already heard about the environmental impact assessment. We're waiting on it still, and I had a couple of people figure that the best thing for you is when you get in the office every morning is to give them a call every morning at the same time. And he said they will answer you before long. So that might be a tactic you can try. The engineering department also issued tenders for the 2018 street asphalt patching, tender number 2018-04 during the month of February. And during the tender closing in February 21st, the town received 4 bids, and a motion will be coming forward at this council meeting. The engineering department also evaluated the lowest tender for the construction of the pre-engineered storage building, and I presented to council with the option to award a deferred concrete slab supply and installation by Meritech Construction Limited as part of the 2017-14 tender, as well as the engineering department had to finalize the design for the in-floor heating system for the new storage building and had requested quotes from 2 qualified plumbers. Details were presented during the March 5th council session of the discussion group. A motion will be coming forward on that tonight's council meeting for both the slab supply and also the installation, supply and installation of the in-floor heating for the new building. And I'll get Dwayne to give us some background on that, because that was pretty good news on that one. The engineering department received a proposal from Aquadata Atlantic from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia for the continuation of our annual unidirection flushing program. Details of that proposal was presented on March 5th, and the motion coming forward in that, and that is what I would call more good news. From the Vic Memorial Center, the Titan boys will be hosting the high school hockey provincials on from March 23rd to the 25th. The Titans, of course, have finished the regular season ranked #1 in their league, and there were a few games just to finish off to find out who finishes first and second in the other divisions. The annual Wampel Cup was played on March 2nd at the Civic Center, and that's a long-time rivalry between 2 houses formerly known as North and South at the Mount Allison, and as per usual, there was a large turnout from the students supporting their favorite house. The blue flashing light and horn are now connected and located directly under the score clock. The light and horn are connected to the ammonia sensor and will go off once their levels reach the designated threshold. There is signage as well as a small write-up inside the player's entrance and the bleacher area. And the staff are working with the fire chief to get the standard operating procedure to be posted and shared with all user groups. The Fireman's Carnival, of course, was held the 24th of February. More information coming on that. Monday, Friday morning, 7 to 8 is a pickup hockey for all those who wish to attend with a $10 drop-in fee and can be paid in the dressing room. Public skates are held Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday between 12 and 1:30. Now that we have spring in the air and the melting ice, please be cautious when playing around watercourse areas. The staff will be working on the design of the new ball shed in preparation to go to tender in the near future, and the half pipe has arrived and will be assembled and installed in the skateboard park once the remainder of the work is completed in the skateboard park. And they're also now, staff is now working with the department Programming Department to work the design of a natural playground for Lydas Fawcett Park. And that is all I have on that, except for motions.
Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, I have a question, Your Worship, on the ammonia sensor that's and the flashing lights and so on. I can see where the players in the rink area would be alerted and so on, but if there are people there watching the games, I guess my question is, what are they supposed to do? Are they to leave the building as well?
Mr. Atkin.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Councillor O'Neill. Yes, there's actually two boards that explain exactly what people are supposed to do when the blue light goes off. So one is just inside, once you come in the building, the player entrance, it's written there exactly. If you see the blue light, hear the siren, you're immediately to leave the building. And staff are, part of that SOP was, staff is also going to be supporting everyone to make sure they get out of the building as well. It's also located up in the stands area as well as to what you would need to do if the blue light does go off. And I don't want this to be a big alarm, you know, that somebody, you know, could, where this came from and why this is in place is there was 3 fatalities out in BC because staff members had gone into, one staff member had gone into a compressor room and there was ammonia leak in there and he got asphyxiated. He went down and meanwhile 2 more employees went in after him. Not thinking, and that's what had happened. So that's kind of where this came about. So we're being proactive. We're taking initial steps to put this in place. And a letter we received this week, I believe, it's going to be, they're going to come down on a lot of municipalities to put this in place because of these fatalities. So we've gone out and put this in place ahead of being forced to. We feel that the safety is important for staff and for the public. But public will be well advised as to what to do, and staff will be directing people on what to do as well as the posters and the information inside the building.
Councillor O'Neill.
I had a gentleman that works in an area where there is ammonia and so on. Anyway, he was asking if we had considered putting windsocks outside in case, so that a person would know, instead of running towards where the fumes are coming from, that they would be aware that the wind is telling them to go the other way. It was just a suggestion he had made, but I thought, well, I'll bring it forward to you anyway.
Councillor Black.
I just had a couple of questions. The ball shed and the natural playground at Lydas Fawcett, question marks? What are those about?
The ball shed is something, it's a capital project that council approved during the capital budget. The ball shed that is currently at our lighted field is deteriorated, holes and falling down and needs to be renewed. So we're going to be working on a kind of a smaller version of that that we're going to put out to tender hopefully in the near future. To replace the existing ball shed, which houses, it'll house a washroom facility for people using the ball field, obviously electrical room for housing or containing the electrical for all the lighting system for the ball field, and that's the ball shed. The natural playground is something that Todd is working on. It's utilizing existing kind of wood products that are natural to kind of, that will potentially be added to the Lillis Park. And so there'll probably be more information coming back to council once that gets kind of further along, but we're just working with a supplier on improvements to the Lillis Park and natural equipment.
Any other questions? Councillor Evans, please.
There, I waited that time. I have I guess I'm requesting a comment. It's about Lorne Street. If we were ever going to test whether we were going to have frost heaving, we've had the winter to do that. Because the reason the road was in bad shape before, and the reason I wasn't interested in repaving it before, was because the ground was wet. It would freeze, it would heave, the pavement would break. And we had a real test this winter, and I've looked at it, and it's still really good. So I'm really impressed. I just want you to confirm that my positive impressions are not naive.
Thank you, Councillor Evans, and yes, you're absolutely correct. If you notice around town where a lot of streets have maybe broke up really bad, if you remember several years ago, I did a report to council where there was no ditches, there was no proper drainage on some of the streets, and that therefore your roadbed is saturated and water is running across the road and freezing and thawing and freezing and thawing. You don't get that on Lawrence Street because of the new construction, of course, proper drainage and catch basins and storm catch basins and so on, so that if you can keep the roadbed dry, then you don't get the frost, as much frost heave. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you for that. You have a series of motions.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council approve the supply and installation of the concrete slab as tendered under tender number 2017-14 to Meritech Construction Limited in the amount of $48,374.75.
Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Evans.
And if I can ask Dwayne to speak on that and the great news behind it.
Thank you, Councillor Tower. Yes, as part of the tender 2017-14, of course, we tendered for the construction of the building. For budget reasons, we had to defer the slab, and the contractor has agreed to hold his price as his tendered price, and is able to do it for that same price this coming year under the approved 2018 budget by council.
Thank you. Any other questions or motions up for debate? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Councillor Tower.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council approve the supply and installation of in-floor heating system as quoted for the new storage facility to Sackville Plumbing and Heating in the amount of $17,568.55, HST included.
Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Finney.
If Dwayne.
Mr. Acting, could you put a little background to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, as part of the the heating system for the new storage building, we had gone out and designed an in-floor heating system, a runoff electric boiler, and we had gone out to two qualified plumbing and heating contractors within the town municipality that are able to do that work, Sackville Plumbing and Corey Allen Plumbing and Heating, and they're going to, Sackville Plumbing will supply and install of the in-floor heating system that will heat the storage building, and of course we're looking only to heat it minimal throughout the winter months only.
Question?
Question.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Councillor Tower.
Moving right along, more good news. I move that council approves the extension of the unidirectional flushing program for 5 years to Aquadata Atlantic Limited of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia in the amount of $18,772 plus HST per year.
Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor O'Neill.
And Mr. Acton, can you give the good news on that one, please?
Thank you again, Councillor Tower. Yeah, as part of our utility operating budget, each year we do our annual flushing program. It's a requirement of our approval to operate. We had a long-standing working agreement with Aquadata out of Dartmouth. They just completed a 5-year contract and have put a proposal forward to do an extension for an additional 5 years at no additional increase in cost to the municipality over the next 5 years. So we're be paying for the next 5 years exactly what we've paid for the last 5 years. So that's, again, good news. And again, it's something that we're required to do, and we work very closely with Aquadata to do a good flushing program that improves the quality of our water throughout the municipality, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acton. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Councillor Tower.
I move that council award tender number 2018-04, street asphalt patching to the lowest bidder, McDonald Paving of Moncton, New Brunswick, based on their unit prices included in the tender in the amount not to exceed $251,850, HST included.
Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Mitten.
And Dwayne, just to question that, because I've been asked, and I say, when we have that dollar value, how do you guys track it?
You okay? Thank you, Councillor Tower. So as council probably sees, I provided the results for the tender. Obviously, they all came in over budget. The budget number is, as Councillor Tower had indicated, $251,850. So we have a bit of a challenge ahead of us, but what we typically will do is we track this on a weekly basis on how much asphalt goes down. We meet with the contractor to discuss the overall project. We've got to basically take $251,850 worth of asphalt and spread it over the entire municipality is basically what we're trying to do. So we have to kind of assess, how much patching we do, what alligator cracks may have to wait an additional year. Obviously, the potholes are a must. Other patching, it may be a must, but there may be some of the alligator cracking that may have to wait. It's not a pothole yet for another year, but those are things that we assess with the contractor to try to make the $251,000 worth of asphalt do our entire town. And that's what we do that every year, and we'll continue to do that again this year.
Councillor Evans?
Yeah, just to follow up on that. So what we're doing, you estimate how much asphalt we're actually going to buy. They give you a unit price, understanding that we will only pay for what we budget. And so that it was $280 or whatever it was over budget. So we're going to buy as much as we can afford, and they understand that. It's that kind of tender.
Yeah, it's obviously it has a dollar value because we put the quantities that we think we're going to need, and that gives us the total value, but it is on a per unit basis, per ton basis. So again, it's no different than what we had to do last year. We did the same thing last year because the number was over budget, but yeah, we have a certain budget, and that's as much asphalt as we can. We just got to make sure that it goes as far as we can take it.
Thank you. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
Okay, moving right along. I move that council grant temporary closure of York Street from Lansdowne Street to Salem Street from 8:45 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and again from 1:45 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. on Monday, May 14, 2018, to accommodate the Mount Allison University convocation.
Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Evans. Question?
Question.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
And the final. I move that council grant the temporary street closure of York Street from Salem Street to Lansdowne Street on Thursday, August 30th, 2018, from 3:45 p.m. to 7 p.m. for the Mount Allison University commencement ceremonies.
Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Mitten. Question?
Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
And that is all, your worship.
Thank you. I just make one note that somebody last year indicated that when one of these roads were closed, there was paving and patching going on right beside it. And I just make it mention that this year, just bear those two dates in mind. Okay. We have, is that all you want to say, Councillor Tower?
That is it. Thank you, yes.
Okay. Recreation programs and events, Councillor Butcher.
Thank you. The report is on page 43 and 44. The Recreation Programs and Events Liaison Council met on February 26th. And highlights are as follows. The regular winter programming is now underway. So that's Big Buddies, Trailblazers, 50+ and primetime aerobics and pickleball. The March break activities took place during the week of March 5th to 9th, and all the activities were very well attended. The Sackville Sports Wall of Fame induction ceremony will take place on June 14th at the Civic Center at 7 p.m. And we encourage the public to come out and show their support for this year's inductees, Steve Ridlington, Earl Howe, and Heather Smith. The Volunteer Recognition Night will be held in late June, and nomination forms will be available at sackville.com soon. April is Poetry Month. The department is working with local poets to develop a schedule of events, including poetry in the schools, public readings, and our poetry writing contest. The manager has been in touch with local organizations concerning the 150th anniversary of the railway in Sackville, and events are being planned for next year, 2019. And the Roller Derby is coming to Sackville in the spring. A date has not yet been confirmed, but that information will be coming. Operation Beautification will be held on Thursday, May 10th. And clear and blue bags will be available at the Town Hall lobby from 10:30 a.m. until 6 p.m. We encourage local organizations and businesses and individuals to take some time out of their day to help clean up our town. The business or organization that fills the most bags of garbage will be featured in the trip. The department has been working with Public Works and Parks, and a tender for a new events tent should be made public soon. We hope to have recommendations to council in May. And we're offering an introduction to photography course again this spring, and participants can register at sackville.com. And as you heard earlier, Mountie Day will be held on Thursday, March 27th. We'll be hosting a flag raising, and there'll be speeches and a Mountie Day cake at 11 a.m. at Town Hall. We encourage residents and businesses to proudly display their Mountie pride in the windows and to wear garnet and gold throughout the day. And Operation Halo, which stands for Hiking Adventures for Ladies Only, will be held at Beach Hill Park on the afternoon of April 29th. And ladies may register at sackville.com. Space is limited. And the first meeting of the Recreation Master Planning Committee took place on March 6th. And the manager provided an overview of our expired master plan and outlined the process to the committee. And the library report, there was not one brought in this month. And I do have one motion.
Any questions on the report?
Okay. I move that Sackville Town Council support the Mayor's Age-Friendly Advisory Committee to make application to be designated under the New Brunswick Age-Friendly Community Recognition Program.
Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Councillor Tower. Any comments? Just sorry, Councillor Mitten first. Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to speak in favor of this motion as it fits with Sackville's commitment to being inclusive and welcoming to all, including people of all ages. And I look forward to seeing how our community can become more inclusive for seniors and everyone, because when we increase accessibility, it will also benefit others with mobility barriers and even those with strollers. It will also help Sackville prepare for diseases like dementia, which are unfortunately predicted to increase, and to support our community members as they age. So I'm happy to speak in favor of this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Evans?
Yeah, I too will be speaking in favor of this. We had a presentation at our special meeting last week by the committee, and it's there is, I believe, provincial funding that might be available to us if we get this designation, and I think that's an extra incentive for doing this, but I'm going to vote in favor of doing it because I think it's the right thing to do.
And just for those who were not here at our last meeting, that presentation is on the web, I think, on our website now, so people can check and see just how much work they did and some of the generic areas they would like to proceed in the future too. So, question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor Butcher. Public safety? Who's starting? Councillor O'Neill?
The Saco Fire and Rescue responded to 7 calls for service in the month of February, which included 3 motor vehicle collisions, 2 commercial fire alarms, 2 requests for assistance from Ambulance New Brunswick. And just a note that the calls for service to date in 2018 are down 19 calls compared to the same time in 2017. Training sessions included a presentation from Maritimes and Northwest Pipeline, and it was to bring the members of the department up to date and so on the safety procedures that need to be followed while responding to a natural gas incident, as well as and they also did station and equipment checks. Their 109th annual Farmers Winter Carnival, I believe, was a great success again. And the Sackville Fire and Rescue would like to thank all the local businesses and business owners for their donations. And as well, their thanks goes out to the judges that took part in awarding the prizes to the different skaters and so on. I'll have 2 motions coming forward, 3 motions, I guess it is. One is recommended purchases of bunker gear. The other is for firefighting nozzles, and as well as that of disposing of their trucks. And when I get ready for those motions, I'll ask the fire chief if he would speak on them. As always, the chief reminds us to have a basic emergency kit prepared to last for 72 hours. And I think that's all there is other than the motions. I move that council authorize the purchase of 5 sets of Starfield Lion bunker gear from Micmac Fire and Safety Source Limited in the amount of $17,537.50, HST included.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill. Seconded by Councillor Mitten. Chief, could you supplement, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor O'Neill. Bunker gear is something that we replace and request on an annual basis within our capital projects. We try to replace 4 to 5 sets per year to within the 10-year time frame. We make sure that we've got all of the gear replaced that we need to replace to keep our firefighters safe. So this is part of our operation, but part of our annual capital request as well.
Thank you. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
My next motion, I move that council authorize the purchase of firefighting nozzles and hoses from Micmac Fire and Safety Source Limited in the amount of $20,412.50, HST included.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Butcher.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor O'Neill. As part of our operations, we have our hose and nozzles tested on a regular basis to meet NFPA standards. They're done annually. And over the course of time, we need to replace some of the hose that's been taken out of service that no longer meets that standard. And with doing so, we're recommending the motion coming forward tonight, which I'd also like to point out that both these motions have fallen under budget.
Thank you. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. It's nice to know they're all under budget as well. The next motion, I move that council declare surplus the 2000 GMC C8500 tanker, serial number 1GDP7H1C6YJ502465, and authorize its disposal through a surplus sale to the highest bidder or other means as deemed appropriate by the CAO.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aitken.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this tanker is getting ready to be taken out of service. The new tanker is going to arrive earlier than originally expected. It will arrive on Sunday, March 25th. The members will take some training on it and on Sunday for 6 to 8 hours, and then it will go to our Public Works team for them to take training on the operational side of it. And then shortly thereafterwards, within a week or two, once our members are all trained, it will go into service.
Any questions? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Police report? Oh, sorry, Councillor Towers. 1 second.
Thank you, Rashid. Just want to go back to the report there, because I've had the question from the people at a local establishment that enjoys coffee a lot. One is, of course, are the tickets ready for the truck yet? And two is, because it's maple season, the breakfast date.
Thank you, Councillor Tower. Yes, our truck draw tickets are out and in circulation. And secondly of all, our maple syrup pancake breakfast is scheduled for April 14th. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor O'Neill?
I wonder, Chief, if you'd like to explain to him about your truck draw, because it is a different concept this year, and I was pretty excited over it, so.
So unlike other years, this is our 13th annual, but like other years, the members, people buy a ticket and they're eligible to win a truck. If they so choose not to take that truck, they can take that value of that truck and apply it to any other vehicle that the Allen Group offers for sale, i.e. Kia, Hyundai, Nissan, or Dodge. So, and then with that, if they take a vehicle of lesser value, the difference between what the department paid for the truck and what the winner of the vehicle took, that difference will come back to the membership to go towards their fundraising activities.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Okay, are we ready for police now? Okay. Councillor Black, please.
Thank you. I was not at the Public Safety Liaison meeting, but we did have the RCMP give us a report before our special council meeting on March 5th. Call volume in February was noticeably lower than last year. Reported property crimes in the town have been consistent the last few months, but there have been no discernible trends. Street checks have been continuing in town and contributed to the RCMP's analysis that doesn't identify any crime trends. There were 31 foot patrols to increase visibility and deter late night liquor-related activity. And there were many school visits at 20 by the RCMP, which excludes the CPO visits. In the past year, there has been a focus on street checks, school visits, and foot patrols. They've been doubling from the previous year. With overall crime trends in the district growing, Sackville area has stayed fairly consistent. I want to say low in its consistency. In early February, we executed, or the RCMP executed a drug search warrant in a local residence. A man and woman were arrested, and the search led to the seizure of various drugs and items associated with drug trafficking. The two were released with charges pending for drug trafficking. An update on the human resources side of the RCMP. After several months of vacancies in both municipal and provincial positions, Sackville is now down to one vacancy. This would be the provincial corporal position, which is currently advertised as a promotional opportunity. A municipal constable is in the process of being transferred, but pending the sale of a home, there aren't any plans to replace her. The CPO report appears on page 47 and 48. As always, he's highly active in 7 various committees in Sackville and the surrounding area. As well, he had 3 active adult files and 8 active youth files in his diversion program for Sackville. And he visits the schools regularly, Mount Allison, Tantramar, Marshview, and Salem. Of note, in the community section of his report, he keeps the usual visits to the hospital, addiction services, school counselors to maintain a relationship with them as they are the diversion committee for the CPO. There were 3 positive tickets issued in February. He's also working continuously with MAD Canada and still looking for Sackville volunteers for the organization. He was the organizer of the Cops and Kids Leadership Camp. This is the second one, a follow-up to the one that they had last year. Again, 35 to 40 students from the Sackville area will be attending the Tim Hortons camp on March 22nd to the 25th, 2018. And also, he's currently working on a project with Crossroads for Women. The Sackville Commons invited as well to participate, to apply for a grant through the RCMP that will allow to train people on how to deal with clients that have recently been victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. And that's the end of my report.
Any questions on the report? And you don't have motion, right? No. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move to policy and bylaw. Councillor Evan.
The Policy Bylaw Liaison Group met on February 14th and continued to look over a number of sections of Bylaw 231, our street traffic bylaw. As well, we reviewed some recommendations and suggestions submitted by staff. As mentioned in last month's meeting notes, the group will be reviewing this bylaw in its entirety, which will be an ongoing process over the next few months before presenting the recommended revisions to council. In follow-up to last month's regular council meeting, motions will be coming forward tonight to consider passing second and third reading of Bylaw 260, the Town of Sackville Emergency Planning Bylaw, and Bylaw number 261, a bylaw relating to council remuneration.
Set you up well.
Yep. 260, do that one first. Okay. So the motion will read, I move that council give second reading section by section to bylaw number 260, Community Emergency Planning Bylaw. And I will now go through it reading the section headings because we've published them in accordance with the Act, so I don't have to read the whole bylaw. Bylaw number 260, Town of Sackville Municipal Emergency Planning Bylaw. Section 1, definitions. Section 2, the coordinator. Section 3, negotiations. Section 4, local emergency. Section 5, declaration of a state of local emergency. Section 6, mutual aid agreements. Section 7, repeal. The proposed bylaw may be examined by any interested person on any day, Monday to Friday, between the hours of 8:30 a.m., 4:30 p.m. at the clerk's office, 31C Main Street, Sackville, New Brunswick. So that's the motion.
Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor Black. Motion is on the floor. Any comments? Councillor Evans, any follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned this when we did first reading. This is really just a house cleaning, housekeeping, I guess I should say. There are a few changes that were required to be made, just titles and stuff like that. There is no substantial change, so it's really just a procedural thing.
This was the change in reference to the names of the acts cited?
Yes, municipality to local government.
Oh, that's right. That was the original, that's right.
So that was the substantive, the only substantive.
That's
change was
right.
those
Okay,
references.
that was why we originally made the changes. They were just housekeeping. And then, because it took long enough, we did the third and final reading in a year when our new Local Governance Act was in effect. So now, in order to be strictly kosher, we are going to redo the whole process, naming the appropriate act. Thank you for leading the witness.
So this is motion for second reading on that. You've had first reading already. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Okay. I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 260, Community Emergency Planning Bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor Tower. Go to question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
I move that council give second reading, section by section, to bylaw number 261, a bylaw relating to council remuneration. Bylaw number 261, a bylaw relating to council remuneration. Section 1, definitions. Section 2, remuneration of council. Section 3, per diem and expense reimbursement. Section 4, repeal provisions. And I don't think I need to read the rest.
Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor Mitten. Councillor Evans?
Yeah, and so, as I said when we did first reading, this, at the direction of council staff, consolidated at least 3, if not 4, separate documents, policies, bylaws into one, and tried to simplify it that way, to make sure there are no inconsistencies. The only substantive changes, we're not changing how much we're getting paid. The 2 big changes I think that we're adding in terms of accountability, we will be posting information about how our elective expenses, what will you call those? For we go to conferences or expenses like that, they will be noted beside each of our name. And also something I really like is essentially an attendance record. So we'll be noting how many meetings councillors attended or participated in. So those are the substantive changes to this new bylaw.
We've all discussed this for quite a period of time. Any questions? Question on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 261, a bylaw relating to council remuneration.
Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor Mitten. Question?
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Personnel report. Councillor.
Thank you for your patience. The following is an overview of recent activities during the past month. A liaison meeting was held on March 1st. As of the last pay period in February, there were 38 permanent employees and 3 temporary employees, crossing guards and recreation. The 2 outstanding grievances relating to staffing have been referred to arbitration. Robert Breen has been confirmed as the arbitrator, and the hearing date is expected to occur in mid-June. A remuneration bylaw has been passed tonight, and the town observed New Brunswick Family Day on February 19th, when many of our employees enjoyed the day off. Registrations were also submitted for the upcoming FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, conference in Halifax from June 1st to 4th. 1st to 4th. And that's it.
Questions on personnel report, anyone? There's no motion. We'll move on to corporate affairs and strategic development. Councillor Mitten, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. You'll find the report on pages 64 and 65. The Corporate Affairs and Strategic Development Liaison Group met on February 21st. The draft plan resulting from our Exit 506 land use and functional planning study was presented by Acoustics Planning and Design on February 21st after being rescheduled from February 7th due to weather. We were very pleased with the community interest. There was a good turnout that night, and the feedback received. The final plan is now being prepared and will be circulated to council for discussion in April, which will include plans for implementation. The environmental impact assessment for Phase 2 has been mentioned this evening, and pending the issuance of a certificate of determination by the minister, staff will be proceeding with a public meeting regarding the design of the stormwater retention ponds. Staff presented to the Sackville Rotary Club on March 8th about the town's 2018 capital projects as we look to find future partnership opportunities for the town and Rotary Club. Staff will also be presenting our Lawrence Street stormwater mitigation plans at the 2018 annual conference of the New Brunswick Climate Change Adaptation Collaborative, Ready for Action, Adapting to a Changing Climate, taking place in Miramichi, March 14th. Pardon? Oh, my apologies, it's been postponed. I assume due to weather. Okay. We'll update you again in April, and hopefully it will have happened, yep. As noted at the February meeting, throughout the 2018 winter semester at Mount A, we have been working with students enrolled in the Geography Environment class instructed by Dr. Lowett. 2 students have been providing assistance with civic engagement to better understand how municipalities can engage with communities, and their research projects are underway. And in fact, we have one of those students in the audience this evening. Caitlin Gallant has been working on a survey which will be going live and be available on sackville.com in the coming days. So I encourage Sackvillians to fill out that survey, and I look forward to seeing what people have to say. Staff are pleased to have now completed all of the projects included in the Canada 150 project funded by the province. The skateboard park half-pipe equipment has arrived, and I guess the statue of George Stanley has also arrived and will be installed in the spring. And now staff are working with the finance department on the final claim to the Regional Development Corporation, and a celebration of the project is being planned. As part of our strategic plan reporting process, staff will be releasing a new annual survey next week. The new survey will obtain feedback on various service delivery areas and will be featured on our website and distributed via social media channels, as well as other means, in order to reach residents of all ages. So I encourage everyone to fill out all of the surveys that we'll have available. The Community Partnerships Working Group last met December 5th of 2017, and the next meeting is being scheduled for the end of March. The group will be very fortunate to be joined by the Manager of Student Conduct at Dalhousie University, who will be discussing some of the community outreach and collaboration taking place in downtown Halifax. And a quick update on Heritage. Council continues to review potential bylaw changes, as well as other administrative procedures and future appointments to the Heritage Board. And that's my report, and I don't have any motions.
Any questions on the report? You don't have a motion?
No.
Nope. Okay. Thank you, and thank you for your volunteering and on this, well, kind of coerced volunteer, but. Okay, we move to, there is no new business, and so we are now open for questions from Mr. Work.
One about bylaw number 260, the emergency planning bylaw. I understood that those changes were being made in conjunction with an updated EMO plan that is to be brought forward in the new year, this year. I'm wondering when that plan might be coming forward.
The new EMO plan will be presented to council at the April special meeting of council.
Thank you. My next question is the new signs, the new highway signs. I'm wondering what they cost. I can't recall hearing a figure for that.
Mr. Spurls, do you know that?
Thank you, Mr. Work. I don't have exact numbers with me, but I can get back to you on that. I wouldn't want to give you the wrong kind of general numbers, so I can get those for you.
Thank you. Thank you. And finally, I need a bit more information about the export of garbage to Nova Scotia. If I heard correctly, there was an interim answer from the department. I'm not sure which department, and that in conjunction with that, the minister had something more to say about finding ways to stop it. I just need a bit more on that to kind of understand what's happening.
So it's the Minister of Environment and Local Government, so it's the same minister that the Regional Service Board would have dealt with from the governance perspective. So our letter went to that minister as a board, and I believe other boards had very, very similar letters as well. And what the response was, because we hadn't heard from some, so we asked for a response. We got an email response from the department, I think the minister's office. And what we heard from the regional service staff was that they were being advised that they were looking at the methods now that they would have to implement to ensure that that would not happen. It wasn't the minister themselves, but it was advice to the service, our service commission staff, that that's where it was at, and there would be a more substantive reply coming to the letter once they were a little clearer on what that method was. But they didn't want to leave that gap any longer than it had, so there was an interim reply indicating that they were looking at the options.
So you're expecting a final answer to your letter later. This is kind of an interim one.
Yes, it was just because we kept asking. We hadn't had a meeting for 2 months, but we were still, a lot of us were asking the chair of the board, what's going on, what's the feedback? So they sought that and got that interim reply.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Questions from the audience, please.
Hi, I'm Sharon Hicks. Just a couple things here. First one is just very minor, but I thought you might want to update the minutes. The Sports Wall of Fame inductees, one is listed in your agenda as Early Howe. His name is actually Earl Thompson. So I don't know if you might want to update that. Second, I was just wondering about the Sackville signs. Are they lighted? Like, are they visible at night? If they're not lighted, is there some way to make them light reflective, at least the word Sackville?
Mr. Sparrows?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, Sharon, both of them will be connected to power and have lighting.
Oh,
on them.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
LED lights.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you. Other questions? I have a motion. Move to adjourn by Councillor Tower. Seconded by Councillor Finney. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you all.